When many people think of the Catholic Church, they think of Baroque-style buildings, the Latin language, rosaries, and even the city of Rome. In other words, when most people think of the Catholic Church, they think of the Roman Catholic Church. But even though the Roman Catholic Church does make up the vast majority of people considered Catholic, about 1.2 billion people, there are actually 16 million Catholics in the world who are not Roman, but rather members of churches formerly connected with Orthodoxy, now considered to be in full communion with Rome. What does that mean? It means that there are Catholics out there who have never spoken Latin at Mass, have their own ancient liturgical traditions, and even allow married priests as the norm, and they are just as much Catholic as the Pope. I guess you could say that our family is larger and more diverse than many realized. This is Catholicism in Focus. As we begin a discussion like this, it's helpful to remember that while the name Catholic has come to refer to a specific institution, distinguishing itself from Protestant and Orthodox denominations, the original use of the word had nothing to do with the institution. In Greek, the word Catholic simply means universal, or literally, in respect of the whole. From the earliest time the church took this as its name, Christians wanted to emphasize that the church on earth was not tied to any particular language, location, ethnicity, or time period. Jesus' mission applied to and could be understood by all people. Quite obviously, Jesus didn't speak Latin, nor did the vast majority of the church for the first few centuries of its existence. As Christianity spread throughout the Near East and the Mediterranean, the central beliefs were received into a diversity of cultures and expressed in different ways, with Christians speaking Aramaic, Greek, Syriac, and other Semitic languages before Latin rose to prominence. It is from this process of spreading in and through different cultures that numerous rites began to develop within the overall church. A rite, as defined by the Code of Canons of the Eastern churches, is a liturgical, theological, spiritual, and disciplinary heritage, distinguished according to people's culture and historical circumstances, that finds expression in each autonomous church's way of living the faith. In other words, a rite is a sort of denomination within the communion of the overall church. Each rite shares the same core teachings as everyone else, but expresses them in prayer, thought, and daily life in different ways. Going back to the ancient church, scholars suggest that there are three main rites from which all modern rites trace their lineage, each developing from the culture and authority of the three original sees of the church: the Latin Rite from Rome, the Antiochian Rite from Antioch in Syria, and the Alexandrian Rite from Alexandria in North Africa. The Latin Rite is by far the largest and is what most people think of when they think of the Catholic Church. Originating in about the 4th century, today is arguably the simplest and most uniform of rites, as the rite and particular church are but one entity, and the diverse liturgies that were once celebrated have mostly all been suppressed or incorporated into the Roman Rite. With very few exceptions, if you are attending a Latin Rite church, you are probably attending the Roman Rite liturgy in one of its approved forms. The Alexandrian Rite, on the other hand, is a bit older and more diverse in practice. Traditionally, adherents of this rite believe that the rite originated with St. Mark, the evangelist, as he is believed to have been the first bishop of Alexandria, but a significant portion of the current liturgy comes from Saints Basil the Great, Cyril the Great, and Gregory of Nazianzus. And unlike the Latin Church that is but one particular church, the Alexandrian Rite has borne three particular churches in communion with Rome. There's the Coptic Catholic Church, the Ethiopian Catholic Church, and the newly formed Eritrean Catholic Church, which just entered full communion with Rome in 2015, so welcome to the family. At this point, it might seem a little confusing, but so far so good, right? We've got 2 overall rites, 4 particular churches, so we're doing okay. At least, we were doing okay. When we look to the Antiochian Rite and its modern descendants, things get a bit out of control. Not only are there 19 particular churches that trace their origin back to this ancient rite, the rite itself has been developed and separated over time into 3 distinct families of rites: the Byzantine Rite, the East Syriac Rite, and the West Syriac Rite. Like the original rites themselves, each break-off rite can trace its origin back to a particular ancient city of prominence. For the Byzantine Rite, that city was Constantinople. Originally under the jurisdiction of the Patriarch of Antioch, the current rite includes many elements of its predecessor, but developed greatly after Constantinople was made the capital of the Roman Empire, and thus the seat of all Eastern churches. Today, the Greek or Constantinopolitan Rite is the rite of the Eastern Orthodox Church, as well as 14 Eastern Catholic particular churches, making it the second largest liturgical rite celebrated in the world. Considerably smaller but far older are the two Syriac rites, East and West, that traditionally trace their lineage back to St. Thomas the Apostle in Jerusalem and were traditionally very influenced by Rabbinic Judaism. Because of this, the Syriac Church, both East and West, are largely responsible for the church existing in India, and today, at least culturally, remain the closest church to the earliest expression. As time went on, however, the two Syriac churches began to distinguish from one another and develop into two separate rites, with the Eastern Rite becoming centered in Upper Mesopotamia and producing the Chaldean and Syro-Malabar Catholic churches, while the West becoming centered in Antioch and producing the Maronite, Syriac, and Syro-Malankara Catholic churches. Sufficiently overloaded with information yet? Well, hang in there, because we only have one more to go, and then hopefully a reason why all this matters. The final rite in church in union with Rome, the Armenian Catholic Church, has a bit of a complicated history. While adherents traditionally trace their history back to apostles Bartholomew and Jude Thaddeus, it is more likely that the church was founded by missionaries from one of the Syriac churches and was, at least in its foundation, an extension of that branch of the Antiochian rite. What's interesting about the Armenian church, though, is that it quickly took on its own identity distinct from the other churches, intertwining faith with a national identity. In 301, the Greater Kingdom of Armenia became the first nation to declare Christianity its national religion, doing so a decade before it was even legal to practice in the Roman Empire. By the end of the 5th century, it separated further from the metropolitan and other regional churches, in part due to its refusal to accept the decrees of the Council of Chalcedon in 451. For centuries, it has existed as its own independent national church with its own rite, yet has maintained friendly ecumenical relations with Orthodox, Catholic, and Protestant churches throughout its history. In 1742, a portion of the church was officially recognized as being in communion with the Roman Church. And that, to the best of my knowledge, are the 5 rites and 23 autonomous particular churches in union with the Roman Catholic Church. Unfortunately, we didn't get into much detail about the specifics of each rite or church and what makes them distinct, but frankly, that's for another video. I think we're done here. The question that remains unanswered, and what you might be wondering having sat through this entire video, is why does any of this matter? On a basic level, it matters because they're our brothers and sisters who share communion with us. Given the importance of the Eucharist to our faith, it just makes sense to know a little bit about the people with whom we are one in body and spirit. If we can receive their communion and they ours, we should probably know that they exist. But I think there's more to it than that. On a much more practical level for us as Roman Catholics, the existence of other rites and particular churches reminds us that there isn't just one valid way to pray, worship, govern, or live in Christianity. We can look at our Latin roots and trace them back to apostolic times, knowing that we are authentic in our faith. But so can so many others who come from wildly different historical and cultural worlds. The fact that we can be in union with someone without demanding uniformity, recognizing that what we hold as our core beliefs can be expressed in a variety of ways, reminds us why we took our name in the first place. Our church is not tied to a particular language, location, ethnicity, or time period. And that's what it means to be Catholic. Thanks for watching this episode of Catholicism in Focus. Interested in more videos? Click here to see the whole playlist, and be sure to subscribe if you want to stay up to date with new videos.